let's talk about this letter to the legislators and the background on it. First, what exactly is the letter, and what is the purpose of it?
The purpose of the letter is to do two things. One, to ask members of the Assembly not to take donations from the gambling casino crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And as some of you may know, they're taking large amounts of money, and that money skews their thinking. And secondly, I asked them not to vote for any casinos in North Carolina.
You know, this topic, and pardon me for interrupting, but this topic kind of resonates out of the recent election in State Senate District 26, and that, of course, with the Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger and Sam Page. And I say that, and I'm stating this, but actually it's more in the form of a question. But because Senator Berger had in fact been very supportive of casinos being constructed in North Carolina, he had backed efforts on 3 geographic locations for a casino. One of them being in his district in Rockingham County, if I'm not mistaken. So is that part of this endeavor? Is this what motivated you by any chance?
Yeah, that's the primary issue. And interesting, he wanted to have a casino located in the Eden area, which is Rockingham County. And in the vote for the Republican primary, as far as I know, he lost every single precinct in Rockingham County.
He did.
And what that is, it's an overwhelming rejection of the idea of having a casino in North Carolina, and particularly in their county. And I think if you went to other counties around North Carolina, you would find the same results.
This brings up a variety of questions. And again, Bob Luddy with us this afternoon, president of Captive Air. Bob, you are a very successful businessman, and I'm confident that you, well, obviously in your letter to the members of the General Assembly, asking them not to accept any funding from the casinos, I'm sure that you and other business people have engaged in political endeavors and attempted to, well, I say attempted, but sought to support programs across the state. Obviously, casinos are a business, but this is a unique business to North Carolina. Let's talk about your observation first and foremost about the casinos and the casino investment in North Carolina, which apparently was quite significant. As a matter of fact, let me just make a comment, and I can't say that this is a fair observation that it was all casino money. However, in that campaign for State Senate 26, close to $10 million was invested in that campaign on behalf of Senator Berger, who lost by a mere 23 votes, which is interesting as well. But as you pointed out a moment ago, he had no support within the primary market, which was Rockingham County. So I'm wondering, do you see this as an effort on outside endeavors in outside of North Carolina, trying to influence the state and its state's future? Is that a concern?
Absolutely. If you look back historically, since 1900, North Carolina has been the leading economy in the South, beginning with textile mills, furniture manufacturing. And that was a combined effort of farmers and working people and communities to rebuild the state after the Civil War. And that's continued right up till now. So North Carolina has a stellar record for economic development. And the idea of saying, well, if the state allows casinos, we can make some money off it. It's illogical, immoral, and it's a profoundly bad decision to say we're going to corrupt our youth so that the state can take in a little bit more revenue. And I think maybe the members of the Assembly aren't quite realizing how bad casinos are. They're the road to serfdom, to corruption, and not to economic development, but economic collapse. Because all that money's going to be sucked in by the casino and leave North Carolina. And as a result, we're going to be poorer for bringing in casinos. This should be obvious. If you relate to Atlantic City, casinos were going to be the salvation of Atlantic City.
Mm-hmm.
Most people know the end of the story, and it's not very good. Atlantic City's a basket case. They wrecked the whole town with casinos. When I was a young person, we would go down to Atlantic City, and it was just a fun place to go to, where normal people went to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the voters of Eden have spoken very loudly to Senator Berger and to the General Assembly. We do not want casinos in North Carolina, and we really don't want gambling at all, because all it does is corrupt our youth, and it's a negative economic development system, because we'll have to have more police, more welfare, more mental health issues. All those things follow gambling. So for members of our assembly that should be protecting our citizens, they're making some very, very bad decisions, and we've got to convince them not to do that.
Bob Luddy with us this afternoon. And Bob, I'm going to opine on an item and say to you that I think that the legislature has been incrementally growing into the concept of gambling and casinos. And I am an opponent of, and have always been, I'm not very supportive of the lottery. And of course, it was sold initially as an educational lottery. As a matter of fact, you've alluded to that in your conversation. And we have seen how the state has then siphoned off money from the lottery, only to be embarrassed by it and have to bring money back. And now, of course, we have online gambling or digital gambling, and we're seeing this in particularly the college market. But North Carolina has been, if you will, slowly and gradually moving towards a gambling environment. Do you see this as, and particularly the experience in State Senate District 26, the surprising loss that the President Pro Tem of the Senate, Phil Berger, who had been in that position now for going on 14 years, the single largest, most powerful legislator in North Carolina, losing. Do you see that as a clarity moment for the legislature?
Absolutely. And every one of those members should be paying attention, because in our system of democracy, politicians need to work for the voters. That's the whole basis of democracy. And now that the voters have spoken loud and clear, we're willing to vote against the most powerful person in the state, politically, to make sure that they don't infest our state with gambling of all types, with casinos being the absolute worst, but they're all equally bad.
Of course, I'm very much a supporter of your position. Bob Luddy with us this afternoon. We won't keep him too much longer. But Bob, the other aspect of this, and I want to touch on this in a moment. The issue of education and the sales approach to this. But you alluded to something earlier, the fact that North Carolina has been a leader in the South for 100 years easily. We are known as the good roads state. We have led the state for example, we are the second or third largest banking. Charlotte is I think the second largest banking community in the country, which is stunning. I mean, it used to be New York, California, and Charlotte. Now I think it's New York and Charlotte. But the point is, we are seeing a focus in the legislature to bring in industry, to bring in productive services, banking, for example. I saw a story today that there's a bank, Japanese bank, that's going to be locating in Charlotte here in the near term. So it strikes me, Bob, that the legislature ought to be focused on one goal, not multiple goals. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. And if they want to help the counties, the first thing they do is to improve education. Now, the General Assembly has made steps in the last 15 years, including expansion of charter schools, the North Carolina Opportunity Scholarship, But that's a very slow mover, and it's making huge improvements in the urban areas, a little bit slower in the counties. But ideally, over maybe a 10 to 20 year period, we should phase out public education as we know it and have public education be provided by an array of different approaches with a particular emphasis on what we call manual skills, vocational skills.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, with the advent of AI,
Mm-hmm.
nobody is going to replace a skilled worker. Whether it's the
Right.
farmer, the plumber, the electrician, they're going to be here 100 years from now. So if the General Assembly would focus on making sure that every student had an opportunity to learn both manual skills and intellectual skills and character development, then as these businesses move in, these individuals will be employable.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be good family members. They'll be good members of the community. And for the next 100 years, North Carolina will continue to prosper.
We're talking with Bob Luddy, and again, president of Captivair, a company that you manufacture products for basically restaurants and well, I mentioned to you, I saw one of your systems at a local hospital there in Raleigh, but you rely on a large employment base, I would assume?
We do. And matter of fact, now Captivair is in the HVAC business.
Okay.
And we're using a leading-edge technology called direct outside air systems. And that means you can bring in unlimited outside air so that you have better indoor air quality, at the same time maintaining temperature, humidity control, and filtration. So Captivair, these are very complicated technologies, and they require a plethora of engineers and technicians, both in the factory, in the R&D development, in the application engineering, and in the service to make sure these units continue to run well. So if you look at futuristic, all of these technicians or these technologies require very high-skilled, very alert technicians and engineers to keep them running. And if North Carolina just focused their effort to say, let's produce the people that we need in the future and forget these whimsical ideas, if we had more gambling,
Mm-hmm.
we'd have a better economy.
Right.
It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. If Virginia wants to be the state of gambling, God bless them. Let them do it. North Carolina needs to be known as the state of business and industry and good education and good people. And historically, North Carolina's had the best people in the country. People move here because they love the environment, they love the people. The state has everything going for it, and it does not need corruption, particularly corruption sponsored by the state of North Carolina.
It is an endorsement. Very quickly, and we're kind of jumping to several points. I want to go back to the issue of education because you mentioned that you yourself have been engaged in development of charter schools across the state. Am I correct on that?
Well, initially charters, but now Thales academies are private.
Okay.
And they do take advantage of the North Carolina Opportunity Scholarships. So virtually anybody can attend with almost no tuition.
And what drove you to this issue of creating these schools? I mean, you've kind of touched on it, but do you see this as the future for education, where, and you just mentioned this a few moments ago, where we experiment more and we provide more alternatives and diversity in education?
Yeah, if you think about education, that your top-tiered students tend to do fairly well. They have good supportive families. Right. They're smart. But the vast majority of them are not treated well. They're not developing their skills. I mean, we have huge number of students coming out of the third grade that can't read.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, we know if they can't read out of the third grade, they're headed for a very difficult life. Some of them are going to be criminals. So knowing all that, it kind of made me disturbed to think that we're not doing everything we can for our young people. And the state can say, well, we put more money in or we did a new program, but the fact of the matter is they're not educating these people. Tyler Cowen, economist from George Mason, has written on this. He's got a book called Average is Over, and he's saying that millions of individuals in this country don't even have average skills, and their whole life is going to be very difficult. Many of them are unemployable because they don't have the skills, they don't have the work ethic, because it was never developed. I'm not blaming those people. I'm blaming the leaders for not doing everything they can to develop those skills for those students for the future.
So bringing this back to how we initiated this conversation, and of course it's related to gambling, and we're not going to keep you much longer, and I appreciate your time, Bob Luddy, with us this afternoon. We talked about the whole aspect of gambling and the fact that the gambling casinos are interested in North Carolina, which I find fascinating in light of the fact that there are many other states that would be probably prone to accepting gambling, but North Carolina has, as we've just discovered, or I shouldn't say discovered, but as we've seen in Rockingham and Guilford counties, where Senate President Pro Tem Mark Basnight, I apologize, former Mark, I apologize here, I'm getting tongue-tied, but the President Pro Tem, Phil Berger, lost his race. The voters don't want it. And this is an important issue. The voters are looking forward into the future of North Carolina. Is this a concern of yours, Bob, that the General Assembly and members of the legislature are looking for the immediate return for their interest, their support, as opposed to the long-term return for their endeavor, that is, for the future of North Carolina? Is that possibly a reason for this sudden interest in casinos in North Carolina?
I think the main reason is all this money's flowing into the General Assembly from the lobbyists.
Okay.
So they're thinking, well, if we have all this money, we can maintain our power over a very long period of time. So they make the concession, which is a terrible one, of gambling. And we already know that gambling is into these sporting events.
Right.
It's undermining college sports, which are supposed to be not professional. And there shouldn't be any gambling involved. They're destroying the sport. So it's a money grab, and both parties are guilty. Both those people giving that money for the purpose of corruption, and those receiving the money who are corrupted because of the money. And I think that's the primary reason why they're willing to vote for gambling. And we've got to convince them that's a bad idea, don't do it, or the voters are going to take your seat away.
All right, you're a major business owner in North Carolina. Are you finding others of your ilk who are saying the same thing, and do you hope to find others? You've written a letter to the members of the General Assembly, and then we're going to finally say, of course, obviously, we're doing this today to educate the voters as well. But I'm thinking, are there other members of your nature, major corporations in North Carolina, that are sitting up and taking note of the very concerns that you have expressed?
I think they definitely are. Now, in the modern world, people are more reluctant to go out into the public.
Right.
And if you're a public company, you can't do it for various reasons.
Obviously.
If you're a private company, for some of the same reasons, people don't want to go out in public because they'll be outed or disparaged or something else. So I decided I'll just do this on my own. If people want to join, I'm delighted to have them join. And I've already received a number of emails from people saying, yes, I agree with you, keep up the fight. So I think as a committee of one, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure they do not vote for this. And God forbid if they do, it would be the worst thing that happened in North Carolina. And you think of our state. It's a precious state that has existed for a very long period of time. It's produced wonderful people. I'll mention one. Malcolm McLean created containerized freight. Containerized freight changed the whole world of world trade. You have so many. You had Ralph Kettner, who introduced low-cost groceries to North Carolina. North Carolina has a plethora, a continuous group of great people who have made this state the best place in the world to live.
And we're seeing it with the investment of major corporations that want to move here and have done so absent any major gambling facilities. It is interesting, Bob, and I'm intrigued by the fact that we haven't had a visitation from the state of Nevada or the city-state of Las Vegas telling us in North Carolina, stay away from gambling, simply because that is a major enterprise for that city, for that state. I'm just surprised that it hasn't happened because, quite frankly, I know that, and I'm not opposed to gambling. Folks want to gamble, that's fine. But it is surprising that they have not been in this. They've come to North Carolina and said, advised us. To your point a few moments ago, take a look at what's happened in Atlantic City, and which has turned into some major slums as a result. So I think I applaud your effort, and I thank you for taking the time to talk to our community about the importance of, standing firm against a short-term benefit with a long-term penalty. Bob, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Locke. It was delightful to be with you, and we're going to defeat this gambling idea.